of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all again, and welcome to the Board of Education's second budget workshop. It's nice to see many RTM members and our Board of Finance member, Bill Sheehan, here tonight, and many of you out to listen to the board. I just would like to remind you that this is a Board of Ed budget workshop, so we kindly ask you if you please hold your questions that you may have with any aspect of the budget till the end of the meeting. We promise to leave ample time for your questions at the very end, but the board may have questions that it needs to pose during the portion of the budget workshop, that same portion. So with that, I'd like to just mention once again that these workshops will be televised on Channel 22. They'll be on the district website for any member in the community, anyone that was not able to be present this evening. I believe we have a few extra copies outside, so if you would like to take one off the table out there, we just ask you if you'd please leave it for us at the end of the evening. So I think I've covered everything about the workshop. We hope to continue to grow with these as the years go by. We're trying to be as open in this budget process as possible as Board of Education members. And once again, I'd like to thank the administrators and everyone that's worked so hard to get the budget in the shape it's in to us tonight. With that, before we begin, I would just like to open this back up to we have an agenda set up there with the follow-up from our first budget session last week. I know there were a couple of questions that were asked, and we may have some follow-up. So with your indulgence for a moment, I'd like to just ask the board if there are any follow-up questions to that portion last week. Lisa?
Well, I'm new to this, so you'll have to bear with me. I did review everything, and my question is, does this budget, does it encompass all of the needs of the schools? Everything that's been discussed and in the budget, is it all encompassing, or does it address the needs of the schools?
Well, this is a needs-based budget, so your question is very good, but I think I will direct that to our superintendent, because we try to give them the administration time, and we'll have more opportunity to talk. But happily, in this first portion, is there anything that you see that maybe we didn't ask or that we didn't notice in this first half of the budget presentation that you may like to address?
It's a great question, and it was one that I really thought about. Do I include that in my opening remarks last week? Do I highlight any of the needs that we didn't include in the budget? And there are some things that aren't included in this budget. And so when Dave Campo asked the question in regards to the reading and math support, you probably noticed that Craig and I at the table did a little bit of a hesitation, because as a team we had a better idea, but we were really being mindful of expenses and what we were requesting. And the toughest part of this budget process right now is that we have a very big elephant in the room called health insurance, and we don't know what that number is. And so when we met with Joe Spurgeon, our consultant, and we did this both with the town and the board together, and I know last week a couple of members in the audience were asking questions, so what do you think the worst case scenario is? Did he give you any sense of maybe what the percentage is? And so if you've been reading the papers and you've been following what other towns are coming in at in their budgets, they're much higher. And the number one driver in many of them is really health insurance. So many places are getting a renewal of 15% or higher. So if we were to get a 15% or higher, you're talking about a budget now that moves above the 3% range. So you're talking about double the increase that I'm proposing at this point in time. So that caused some hesitancy with everything that we brought forward in our first workshop. So Lisa, just being very honest, I can tell you that support model at the elementary level would look a little bit different. Rather than an intern in the reading component, it would have been a paraprofessional. A person that we invest in, that we train, and has that consistency that's year after year. With the intern, they're fresh and new each and every year. Sometimes the contract that we have with the college or university is really for a semester, and then in the semester 2, in comes a new person. Welcome to Quaker Hill. We have a whole orientation program for you, and so it's better than not having the person, but I would say to you that we would have maintained the paraprofessional support at the elementary level with reading. But we also have a very important need in the area of math, and we're covering the math with an intern, and we really felt that if we put the intern back in the reading, because we have a certified teacher that we're proposing, and put the para over with the math. But if we had our druthers, what we would have put on the table is wherever you saw the intern, there would have been a paraprofessional. So that's 3 positions right there at the elementary level. Difference between para and intern. And you know, we can have Bob during the workshop tonight kind of run the numbers on saying to you it's probably between 5 and 10 or 12,000 per person. So it's not a big deal, but it is some additional cost. The other thing that I would say to you, and you know, we've had some conversation along with the board ever since the Newtown tragedy, just looking at from a safety perspective. And safety isn't just about cameras and security guards and safety of the infrastructure. It's also about the mental health and the emotional and psychological safety of our students. And, you know, Kathy can certainly address this in her presentation. In fact, she's going to share with the board tonight that there is a need. There is a need for an additional social worker and an additional school psychologist. So, in thinking about it from last week when it was over, and quite frankly, I just kind of worked on an assumption. I bet we have that question tonight. So what's not in here that we might have wanted to propose? So I'm really pleased that you asked that question tonight. So I would say to you very honestly, the support model at the elementary level, we would strengthen that. Okay. And the second piece that we would do is we would add a social worker and we would add a school psychologist. And so that might be something that we would want to consider before we adopt the budget along the way, because those are definitely needs. And I would also say to you that we will probably, most likely, have an insurance number by the end of this month when we come back on January 30th to say to you, here's what our renewal looks like. We know that Joe has been a very strong advocate, and he's working with Anthem. He picked up a couple of errors in their preliminary work, and that's why we hired him. So we will have better information at that point. But the balancing act, you know, in the way I presented the budget, it was to meet those needs, the excellence, the values that we have, but also being mindful of where we are economically and being fiscally responsible. So, kind of a long answer, but I just wanted to tell you honestly, those are needs that if we had better information on health insurance, and if it was 10 or 15%, I wouldn't be presenting them. But it was a much lower number. I put it on the table for your consideration and say, so here are some needs. Is this a direction we want to go?
Thank you for your response. As we know, and as you have mentioned quite clearly, and the board is aware that the budget process is a fluid process, and even last year we had some good news near the end, so we can keep this in mind, and we'll be listening to Kathy's presentation in a moment, but keep in mind that there are some needs, and thank you to board members for asking those questions, and I think looking at the intern and the para is another important area. So as we go through tonight, remember, the board doesn't take any action tonight, just as the board will deliberate tonight, and we won't take action until January 30th on the budget. So we have a couple of weeks to tighten up any difference in where we are tonight.
What would be helpful is if the board has some other direction you want us to consider, is to give us that direction tonight so that we have some time to work and put together some financial proposals for you, plus and minus. You notice it's not a big deal, But again, last week, as we were presenting, we identified 2 areas that appeared in the budget that we had reduced internally. And I know when Andre speaks tonight, he called yesterday to indicate that he's done a further review and he sees some additional savings. So every little bit helps.
Okay, and just as another quick small follow-up, although this doesn't impact our budget that we're talking about the next year, I just, when Kevin brought up the question on, and we've all talked about the extra tuition cost. Now, before I ask the question, I just want to clarify that I'm a very strong proponent for parental choice. I think it's important that we allow our parents to choose, but given that you have 2 situations that are equal, I'd be a little curious as to some of the surrounding school districts, how many, just for curiosity, nothing, to just know, are we sort of in line?
We are, but we can share that data with you so that you
just so
know exactly the numbers.
It might be worthwhile as we do the surveys at the middle school, particularly when we ask the questions to the parents, to kind of find out, from the parents, because there may be a little room where we can attract. We're going to do more with enhanced advertising and communication. And again, I want to qualify that I am for parental choice, however, even though we're looking in our own budget. But, Cody, you are my buddy.
Would it be possible to ask the students that are already at these magnet schools why they chose them,
That's what.
rather than our own?
Well, we could see, but we could also be asking our students that are opting at this point in time, so just share with us the reasons why. Certainly, again, as I shared last week, students that opt for the tech schools, we don't have that option. But the other schools, we certainly can get some feedback.
Any other follow-up that we need? That brings us, yep, I think so.
Okay, so taking a look at our agenda tonight, Kathy is going to share the special education budget. The elementary principals will give you an overview of the elementary requests. Jim Sachs on the middle school, Andre with the high school, Dave Sousa tonight with the athletic program. We'll wrap it up with Jay with facilities. And then really our opportunity to really have further discussion, any new direction, things that you want us to look at. And one of the things that we talked about last week, as we're presenting, feel free. Just kind of give us a hand signal. You have a question, you want to jump in, we're more than happy to do that.
If you don't mind, I think it works a little easier.
It does, it works great.
Yeah.
So I'd like to welcome Kathy Vallone, who is going to give you the overview of the special education budget request.
Welcome. For those of you who are new to the board, I'm Kathy Vallone. I'm the Special Services Director here in Waterford. I'll be sharing with you the Special Services budget with you this evening. The agenda that I'm going to cover tonight are talking about the accomplishments of the Special Education Department, the drivers in my budget, the budget items, decreases, and talk about containment that we are, as we continue to work on containment. Before I share the budget details, I'd like to share some things to keep in mind. As you heard Jerry mention last week in our workshop, many special education costs are directly related to state and federal mandates. Some mandates are funded, some are partially funded, many are not funded at all. If you had a chance to go in the budget book to the appendix, which is page 106 to 128, you'll see a list of many of those mandates, and you can notice some of them that focus on special education, so that might be helpful for you. Decisions regarding our services for our special education students are always carefully considered based on the student's needs, and while ever being mindful of our budget process. As I go through the budget, it's going to be important to keep in mind the confidentiality of our students. This budget is based on our known numbers as of October 1st, and as we know and we've discussed before, numbers in special education vary as we move through the year. We have a unique situation here in Waterford. As many of you know, we have shelters, a safe home, and a residential treatment center here at the Waterford Country School. There are mandated requirements regarding educating those students if they are no nexus students. And no nexus is a term used for students who have DCF as their guardian, or their parents are incarcerated, or their parents' whereabouts are unknown. And if in those cases those students are placed at the shelter, safe home, or residential, we are required to provide their education and responsible for that. I'll also share as we move forward the impact of magnet school tuition on the budget, transportation cost containment efforts that we've worked on and you've heard Bob talk and share with you, and I will explain excess cost funding to you. I'm pleased to share with you some of the many accomplishments that we've had in our Special Services Department, such as moving to support centers in each of our schools. We did not have support centers in each of our elementary schools, and now we do have that, as well as having a support center at Clark Lane and Waterford High School. We also opened an autism elementary program this past school year, and both of these programs are provide specialized support services to students who might otherwise need an outplacement. Our special education staff has participated in physical and psychological management training, as well as all staff participating in mandated reporter training. We continue to partner with Waterford Youth Services Bureau to provide supportive services to our students and our families in Waterford. We continue to use assistive technologies such as iPads, which are very cost-effective, motivating, and very age-appropriate for our students. Please refer to pages 38 through 47 in the budget book. You'll see a very detailed description of all the placements that we have students at, as well as the numbers associated with those tuition placements. Tuition is a driver in this budget. We have an increase in special education students attending the magnet schools. We pay an additional charge for those special education student services, as well as if they receive related services. Waterford Country School had an increase in their tuition rates. They had not had an increase in many years, and just recently this year had an increase which impacted our budget. We also have a group of students who receive services to age 21, and those students' increase in those numbers are under the private tuition. If you refer to pages 51 through 55, you'll see instructional services. Tutors include tutors for homebound instruction due to health-related or mental health issues, as well as a part-time tutor to support our English language learners. Per diem services, such as summer services for special education students that are provided as part of the student's individualized education plan. You'll see an overall decrease in these line items. Sure, in each line item it would be under tutors, regular education, special education, and ELL. And then under per diem, you'll see special education per diem, evaluations per diem, and speech and language services per diem. And those are all summer services. And again, if you look on pages 51 through 55, you'll see those details. Contracted services. If you refer to pages 28 through 31, this includes contracted services, which include our teacher of the visually impaired, who we share with Groton Public Schools. Continued services from BCDA services for our autism students in district, as well as home services, support services for families with autism students. Waterford Country School nurse, that is, as some of you may know, we're required by state statute to cover the cost of private nonprofit schools nurse. So that's where that item comes in, Waterford Country School, right there. We also have included here the medical advisor. This is good practice, and he provides us with very specialized advice regarding students with significant medical needs, or provides assistance or guidance with health-related issues such as the flu outbreak, for example, students, and also advice regarding students with multiple medical health needs. This also includes outside evaluations for students if they have specialized needs. We also have interpreters, audiological services under this item, and we also have our legal services associated with special education services. Transportation, if you refer to pages 32 through 33, that's the special education transportation. As you heard Bob share with us, we purchased 3 vans recently, and we have been able to provide in-house transportation to our students. It's been very exciting. It's been a challenge at times, but I really think it's been very successful overall, and we've really been able to have a savings in the budget with regard to this. We continue to explore carpooling, and as I shared with you, we always, when we have a student who needs to go to a placement, we call to districts around us, see if we can share the carpooling services so that we can work together with other towns. And the great thing, I think we started exploring this 2 years ago, and Jerry reached out to other towns around us, is now we'll get a phone call from those towns saying, do you have a student going here, can we share? So it's really opened that up for us, and we really see a decrease in this line item because of the purchase of those vans. Pages 48 to 50, 51 to 55, and pages 56 to 61. These are various resources that we use in special education, from batteries to Xerox paper, to testing supplies, classroom supplies, rental equipment. You'll see here the cost for our office, my special services office copier as well included in here. But we've detailed for you travel for our staff that go between schools. And we've been able to keep that at no increase or a decrease in all of those line items. Pages 67 through 69, 75 through 76, and 77 through 79. Again, here you'll see other resources we use in special education, from professional books to dues and fees. And the biggest item here is our assistive technology equipment that we're able to use with our students, iPads, Kindles, to support the students' needs. And Ed Crane talked about the Chromebooks, which we are also exploring in special services. As we heard, those cost between $250 to $300, and very cost effective, but also have a keyboard available for the students, and it's really a nice resource for students. So we're exploring that a little more. Decreases. If you refer to pages 46 through 47, this is where, if you look, it goes back to the tuition, and then down at the bottom it goes into excess cost. Excess cost is what we receive back. Excess cost is based on 4.5 times the per pupil expenditure. The per pupil expenditure is set by the state, and it's adjusted every year. For state agency placements, those are students who are placed in a state placement by DCF. For example, it's 1 times the per pupil expenditure. So to give you a really basic example, if we spent $100,000 on a student's services, 4.5 times the per pupil expenditure is about $67,000. I'm trying to round to figure so we can all do this, and then $100,000 minus $67,000 puts us at $33,000. The state reimbursement is around 70% right now. We've had a lot of variation, and we hear different things from the state, but we've based ours on the 70%. And that would put us at receiving back $23,100 for a student's cost of $100,000. Okay? Our expected excess cost for the 14-15 school year is $770,294. This is our best estimate, but we are always concerned about potential changes. We're always staying on top of that and looking at that very carefully. For example, we just recently found out about a change in the per pupil expenditure. It was just updated. So these are the kind of things that we get information as we move through the year. Containment. I'd like to share with you some of our efforts to contain costs in special education. On this slide and the next slide, I'm going to share with you the cost savings potential of our autism and our support center programs. So this slide shows you our autism program cost comparison. As you can see, we have one special education teacher in our autism program and 3 paraprofessionals. So I've broke down the current salaries of those staff for you. We also have shared with you the potential cost per student if we had to outplace these students. I also took out the cost for supplies for that program, and we estimate that we are just under a savings of about $118,000 for the addition of this program. Our support center program. Sure.
That's quite a substantial push. Last year it was...
Yes, it just started in January or February, yeah.
Can we just have, on the autism program, is there still inclusion with this program?
It depends upon the needs of the students, and it's really very specialized program. It does often start off as a very self-contained program because of the high level of those students' needs. But we do have that opportunity being in our school for that inclusion when they're ready. Our support center program. We have 5 support centers, 1 in each building, as I explained to you earlier. And so we have 5 special education teachers with 5 paraprofessionals, and I broke down the cost for you based on their present salaries. I share with you the potential cost per student if we had to outplace about 10 of those students. We service many more than 10 students in the support center program. I took out supplies, and we estimate to be saving around $86,600 as a result of these programs. And I also want to note is that this program offers such a continuum of support to so many students that it's very difficult to break down the exact cost savings. I did it based on a full-time student who would need to go out, but the level of services that it's able to provide to students on a part-time and a check-in basis is just phenomenal, and it's been very supportive in our schools.
These 2 initiatives alone have allowed us to keep students here in Waterford. And, you know, one of the things we talked with you about last year during the budget process, that's always our top priority, is to have the students be educated here at home. And then the second component of this, we have control of the program. So I would say it's superior to what we'd be spending, and we're saving some significant dollars here.
Other opportunities for containment include we're sending a Waterford speech pathologist to some of our magnet schools to provide speech services to those students. The purchase of our vans has been very cost effective. We continue to explore the carpooling options. We continue to take in tuition for students who attend our schools from other districts, as well as we continue to provide our own in-house evaluations for students. The ADOS is an autism evaluation for students, and we had our staff specially trained in this just about a year ago. We are also exploring transition options for our students from 18 to 21, and I am right now working pretty extensively on that with support from Jerry and Craig. We're really moving that forward, and I hope to have more information on that soon.
That might be a great opportunity for us in the future to save some additional dollars as well and really enhance the program. So it's just not about saving the dollars, it's also a better program for the students. And so what we try to do is get both of those. You know, with that, and Kathy has really taken the initiative and has put a great deal of time. So our hope is within the next year we really have something in place that's going to not only benefit the students but also benefit the town in the cost.
I'm not quite clear on just what it is, the transition program.
That provides vocational services and transitions of services to students who have left the high school, but will continue with us to age 21.
Okay, so it's for that.
We have a legal obligation to educate them to 21, so they're placed in a vocational program, and so they're placed in a variety of places. There's a tuition associated with that, there's a transportation cost associated with that. And this year, I think we shared that we're also utilizing the vans to provide that transportation versus working with our transportation company. So we're saving significantly there. But that's what fills the legal obligation that we have.
Is that the Lighthouse, like something like the Lighthouse?
That may be an option that we use for some students.
Could we also, if we get the program up and running, could we also invite other towns to send their students too, or?
Maybe down the road. Right now, Waterford's our first priority, but definitely down the road. That may be another opportunity.
We made a tremendous amount of progress this last year.
Oh, absolutely.
Doing the autism program, and now what we're hearing tonight. So.
As you heard Jerry share with you just earlier today, this is not included in my budget, but it is a need. We would like to, support our students. There's many mental health issues that a social worker and a school psychologist could provide additional support to our students in that area, to provide social skills groups to students, to provide other support groups for our students in all of the buildings, as well as more family outreach. For students, so for students and families, and really getting into the homes and being able to provide that support. In conclusion, there is an overall increase in the special education budget, mainly due to increases in the tuition line items. That is really the driver in this budget. Questions?
Any questions for Kathy? If you could just speak just for a moment, I don't think it's nice to do it here, but I had asked the question on the software piece with special ed. How does that work? Because I know Mr. Powers explained that the teachers and everyone are involved. That's the same process?
Are you talking about
with the software that you might use with the special ed program?
So for writing IEPs,
right.
We have what's called IEP Direct. We just moved to that this year. And Ed has helped us to implement that and his team, but it's really mandated that we have IEPs and work on those IEPs. This program is able to provide us a database for our students, as well as helping to support us in doing some of the state reporting that we have to do as well. We haven't used it yet for that, but we're excited to try that, and that will be coming up next year, that we'll be able to use it for our state reporting, which we weren't able to do in the past.
And then that's the other thing, we talked last week about adding an additional person in Tredcrest to go out to do that. Person will be purely for going out to do in the outer district
PPTs, magnet school PPTs, and also to support us in our 603 students. Those are the students who are in the shelter and the safe homes, and with those students, PPT meetings as well.
And I think Craig shared with you the numbers. It's really an overwhelming task, and so it's time for us to address that. It really is.
Dave?
I guess I don't really have a question. I just probably want to hear a little more about the social worker and the psychologist, where they would come in and what they'd be doing that, over and above that we can't get done right now.
Mhm. So I think there's an increase in the needs, mental health needs of some of our students, and we want to be able to provide safe learning environment for our students, and when they feel safe, when they have that kind of really support around them, then they're able to learn and they're ready to learn, and we need to get as much support in place for them right now. Right now, social workers, we have 2 that share the 3 elementary schools, and 1 at the middle school and 1 at the high school, and we also have 1 school psychologist in each of the buildings. The school psychologists also have mandates for testing and evaluations, so a very strong major part of their job is doing those testing and those evaluations for students. They also provide counseling services to students, but the social workers are really doing the outreach piece. They're helping and supporting parents in filing for different programs that are available to their children as they get older, especially high school level students. They're able to help families with filing for GDS support services, for BRS, which is the Bureau of Rehab Services, for voluntary services. All of our social workers are able to help families with that. And having the additional staff would be able to have more social skills groups, more support groups, more mental health support groups for our students. And that family outreach is a huge piece. We want to reach out to our families. Our families want the support and the help, and if we had additional staff, we'd be able to do more of that.
I was just going to say, we had a Youth Service Bureau meeting last night, and I know Youth Service Bureau works along with you, but I could see the great need for another social worker and psychologist, because I think in school you can help the student, but maybe, through Youth Service Bureau, they're trying to help the families too. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to help the families in the school too, and maybe with more staff to be able to do that, because there are problems and they need help.
And Youth Service Bureau certainly has had that conversation with us, that they have noticed the increased need on the part of our families. And that we're helping out a little bit with that, with some additional time for staff late in the afternoon. But families and students that we can't support, we've encouraged them to go to the Youth Service Bureau. Now, I can also tell you that they don't have all the staffing there to support what the needs are here in Waterford. So that's the reason why it's on the slide.
As I said a little bit earlier, this is a fluid process, and we'll continue to keep this in mind. I would like the board and for the new board members just to realize that mental health issues and being aware are very important to everyone. And the board then actually made one of its goals to research mental health, and I know Jody and stuff and the superintendent are very active in looking to see maybe eventually we can move in that direction more and more regionalization process. But currently I think if there's a need in the school, it's the responsibility of this board. It's our duty to be sure that we supply the educational but also the social emotional, but most important is an outreach to the parents too. So we'll keep this in mind as we move forward in the next few weeks. Are there any other questions from the board members?
I just wanted to add, even though that number 222, which is about almost a 0.5% increase, that's the impact on this budget, that could have been 3 times as high if it wasn't for the containment efforts that have been put into place. So the tuition is the driver on this one.
And if I may just say, I'm very impressed because I know there was a small hesitancy on when we first on the board talked about the autism program, we wondered, and so I'm pleased to see that it's doing well and that it's also containing costs, because I do agree with the superintendent, more students we can service here in Waterford, the better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you very much.
We're going to now shift to the elementary budget, and our three elementary principals are going to present. Pat Fedor from Great Neck, Glenda Dexter from Quaker Hill, and Chris Osmond from Oswegatchie.
While they're coming to the table, I'd just like to recognize and welcome our first selectman, Dan Stewart, who's here on the desk tonight. So thank you, Dan, for being here.
Good evening, everybody. Hi. Welcome to the elementary budget. Just run through the agenda. We will begin with some of our accomplishments during this past year. We'll move then to our area of focus for the 14-15 proposed budget. We'll present our 14-15 budget. Also provide you with a comparison of the current budget and then the proposed. A little bit of an explanation of changes and then a conclusion. Some of the things we're most proud of that we're working with currently, we've implemented the literacy coaching model in each of the elementary schools, and that is our literacy interventionist was also serving as a coach. We have our tag math teacher this year who is also serving as an instructional coach for the teachers in the area of math. We have worked hard this year to put in or request some funding to support our elementary libraries. We have had nothing added to the budget over the last maybe 7 years.
Yeah.
And as we went through the consolidation of the schools and moving to new buildings, that wasn't a necessity. But as we were in our new buildings, it is time that we start to beef up our libraries just a little bit. And we did put some money in during this past year, and you'll see a change in the request for next year. We have put together a budget that we feel continues to support the most important thing that we do, and that is maintaining appropriate class sizes. Our area of focus, again, is to maintain those class sizes, especially at the K-2 level, to further develop what is already proving to be a successful model, the coaching model in both the math and language arts areas. We want to continue to enhance the literacy and math support, and to, of course, ensure the successful implementation of the Common Core state standards and the SBAC assessment that is no longer right around the corner, but on our porch. The elementary budget per school, most of the conference and meetings, you'll be able to reference this on page 50 of your budget book. Conferences and meetings, our proposed request is $2,200. Our general supplies, this is per school, $37,000 for general supplies, AV supplies $2,000, text $21,500, and library books and supplies $2,000. On the next slide, we'll show a comparison of these and a little explanation of the differences. Conferences and meetings, we're requesting per school a $400 increase, and that's due directly to the two things: the increased cost of professional development and the need to have a little bit more professional development for the teachers with the Common Core and the SBAC assessment, although the bulk of our professional development is provided by our own experts right in-house in district. General supplies per school is an increase request of $2,000, and that's looking at a percentage increase in the actual supplies that we have to buy. AV supplies has remained the same, $2,000. Our textbooks up about $1,500. Again, that reflects the increase in the actual purchase of the books that we need to buy and the consumable books. Library books and supplies, as we got referenced earlier, last year we, for the first year, put back into our budget a request for $5,000 to beef our libraries back up, to be able to buy the current books, the award-winning books, and to replenish some of the ones that just start to wear out. We did a great job of bringing things back up to the level that we needed them. We don't feel we need $5,000 to maintain those now. We've got them almost to where we want them, and agreed as a team that $2,000 would help us maintain that level. So our total increase is $900 per school at the elementary level. And I really did just explain some of these things, so I must have really memorized this thing. But anyway, that explains a little bit further the changes. And our conclusion, if you total our general supplies, conferences, and textbooks, it's an increase of $3,900 per school. The library books and supplies, a decrease of $3,000 per school, with a total requested increase to the elementary budget per school of $900. Any questions on anything other than what I memorized?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm just amazed. I'm just amazed, really. If you divide that by the 64,000, almost 65, by the number of students, it's not that much per student.
And that's really what drives our budget is our enrollment.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to make a comment, too, that I was really pleased with your reading scores going up as much as they did. And, you know, I hope there's more library books and things like that. It'll continue. That's really good.
We have beautiful libraries.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're thank you for really doing a fabulous job on these portions.
Thank you.
Keeping that, while you're telling us and we're listening to you, that it's ample in what you've done in cost containment, but we believe that it's going to serve the children. Thank you.
I think it maintains our libraries
Right.
in a top-notch fashion without just asking for the same thing again. It's what we need.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
Thank you to Pat.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Good job.
Quite a team.
We're going to move next to Clark Lane Middle School, and Jim Jackson's going to join us. Hi, Jim. Hi, Jerry.
Welcome, Jim.
Hi, how are you?
So good evening. Before I present you with the Clark Lane budget, I just want to thank the Board of Education for its support over the past 3 years and the critical eye and input Mr. Belair, Mr. Powers, and Mr. Sierpinski and my fellow administrators have offered. I'm always very happy that the process in Waterford is very thorough and the administrators are comfortable asking questions and offering suggestions to one another. It's a great process. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Moore, my assistant principal, and Mr. Danowitz, our teaching assistant principal, for also looking over the budget and for being here this evening. So I'm really happy that they're here. Our agenda tonight really is, we have a relatively brief presentation. And what I'd like to do is touch upon our accomplishments for this year that are related to last year's budget requests, our next level of work, our proposed budget, and the support that all of this will be for our Clark Lane mission. In the area of accomplishments for this year, we are grateful that the board approved the expansion of our instructional coaches to include mathematics and technology. This was very crucial in supporting teachers as they learn and implement the Common Core state standards and therefore impact students in the process. And we're also very pleased that our conference budget was increased, keeping in mind that last year, although our budget did not increase overall, our reallocations were approved. Everyone benefits from the presence of our SRO, and you have helped made a very good relationship with our police department even better. We have a very strong and constant interaction with our officer on site, and we're really grateful for that. The addition of a school counselor has given each grade a dedicated professional to teach, implement, and put in place student success plans, and to continue to ensure that Clark Lane is a very safe and comfortable environment, the safest it could be each day for all students. So we're very happy for that. Our budget, like last year, was an analysis of priorities and the reallocation of funds. Like last year, we are at a zero-cost increased budget. We reallocated funds from a few accounts to make a more streamlined purchasing and ordering system for ancillaries such as magazines, So we really wanted to clean that up because there were too many people really providing those orders for magazines and such. So we cleaned that up, and the entire budget is now under the direction of our library. In addition, we're increasing our support for our special education supplies, athletic transportation, computer education supplies to assist with that growing area, social studies supplies to help with the materials needed to support the new curriculum implementation, and we have a slight increase in money allocated to pay for our annual dues, and all these increases were offset through reallocations of existing funds. And the pages there do indicate where we took money from and where those funds are now going. So as you can see, our budget is stable from last year to this year. And what I'd like to say about the mission statement is that our budget is really designed to support students being emotionally and physically safe, to continue academic rigor, and to create a consistently respectful educational environment for all students each and every day, and more importantly, to get them ready for the challenges in their next level of education. So that's where we are. Take any questions.
Any questions for Jim? Just like to say, I know you were in the School of Distinction this past year, so I recognize that. I was just as a curiosity when I looked at the dues, wasn't it 81 dollars a dues? Nothing against the high school.
Right. An increase.
But it's still
It is an increase.
And our own dues, but I mean very minimal all around on Sparkling Middle School with a lot of efficiency there on
Well, you have to remember too that we received a new counselor this year, so that was a big step for us for this year. From the funding from the previous year, and that was a huge change for us, and it really helped reach a lot more students. And that sort of goes along with the theme about the concern for mental health, so we're very happy about that.
Very good presentation. Any questions for Jim? Well, good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to welcome Andre Hauser, the high school principal.
Welcome.
Thank you. Now, unfortunately, I can't give you that zero increase, and as any of you who are familiar with high schools and high school budgets are aware, they're a little bit more expensive to run than the earlier grades, largely because of so much of what we're doing involves involvement with other organizations, involvement with other schools, so a lot of travel expenses for teams, things like that. Now this, first of all, if you want to talk about the community's money being well spent, this is our brand new high school. I think I speak on behalf of the entire high school community when I say thank you. It is a remarkable resource, and hectic as it is at times to learn a new building and all of the new resources in it, I've got to tell you that the faculty and I believe the students are having a remarkable time learning what we're capable of doing with the technology and the resources and the facility that we've been given by the community. And our budget for this year really reflects shifting over from a lot of our expenses being in the building project fund back into the regular operation of a high school. So there will be a few accounts where you'll see a fluctuation up or down, but we have tried to be very responsible with what we're looking for. Now, first of all, our accomplishments, our student performance. If you look at the bottom half of this slide and you look at the percentage of our students on the TAP test scoring at or above goal, just the growth over 4 years, we're looking at between 8.9 and 24.3% increases in our student performance. And that doesn't just happen. This was very targeted, very intentional, and it took a great deal of effort. The math and literacy coaches that we have are an invaluable resource. They have helped bring the quality of our instruction along remarkably. Also, having math, reading, and writing labs that are staffed by teachers are a valuable resource. We are able to identify students who don't qualify for special education services, but who are functioning below grade level and just aren't progressing as we anticipate, and we're able to get them into targeted classes, very small, focused on identifying and meeting their needs. And similarly, we have academic study halls that are staffed largely by science teachers, but also teachers from other subject areas where students who need some support but maybe not as much as a student in one of the labs can be scheduled in there to get more focused tutoring and assistance during a study hall. That picture is actually much better in no light. But this is a classroom at the high school, and you can't see it all that well, but right in the middle there you've got the Promethean board, which is central to instruction. Our teachers are becoming much more adept daily, weekly, with infusing technology not as a bell and whistle, but as a real integral part of instruction. And in terms of our accomplishments in instruction, that incorporation of technology, due to the resources we have, has really come along by leaps and bounds. Month to month, if you go into our classrooms, you see a more authentic and nuanced use of technology in instruction. Also, keeping with that theme of really focusing on the mental health needs of our students, last year our school counseling department developed a school counseling curriculum, which we've been implementing through lessons in our advisory and lessons embedded in some of our other subject areas as well, that really focus on the developmental needs of students at each grade level. At the same time, as we work to implement the Common Core state standards across all subject areas, you see that they're the foundation of all curriculum updating. We're just finishing up our social studies, health, and PE curriculum revisions right now. The literacy instruction that we've got through those literacy coaching initiatives is really focusing on content-specific materials and strategies. This is a bit of a change for us. In the past few years, we focused on having similar formats, similar approaches, and we're getting much more nuanced to where when we talk about literacy, we're talking about authentic literacy. And, for instance, our art teachers are talking to students not about reading articles about art, but how to read a piece of art. Our music teachers are doing their literacy instruction using pieces of music, actually, teaching kids to sight read, seeing how well they can do that. And our reading assessments, which are one of the reasons that our CAP scores advanced so much, that 25% increase was in reading, are being redesigned to incorporate Common Core skills more and to help prepare our students for the SBAC, the Smarter Balance testing that will be replacing CAP testing. Of course, you ask any high school student, they'll tell you they love going to class, but it's all the student life parts of school, the school climate, that is also very important. And a few of our highlights from the last year, first of all, was that successful move to the new school facility. This was all done over spring break. They went from being in one school, they boxed up everything they needed and moved it over, and the day kids came back from vacation, here we are in a different building. And since then, it's been that process, like anyone who's ever moved into a new home, of opening up the boxes, figuring out what goes where, and figuring out how the new facility works for us. We added a second security guard position at the beginning of this school year, which has been a great benefit. This campus now, with the new building, has different supervisory needs, and having a second security guard has been extremely helpful to us. Students and faculty worked together last spring to create an organization called Lancer Pride. Now that is an organization made up of students and faculty whose focus is simply on improving the quality of life and looking for ways to improve the school. They were one of the first groups I met with when I was hired, and I'm still working on the checklist they gave me of little things that we could do to improve the school. One of the first was the revision of the advisory program, which we revamped over the summer and introduced in the fall. And no change is going to make every student happy every day, but generally speaking, the feedback has been very positive, that we're finding ways to meet the needs and interests of a wider variety of students now. And one of the reasons Dave Souza is here is to talk about our athletic program. We are the state champions in softball and girls soccer right now, And state tournament appearances by most of our sports last fall and into the spring, and that's great. That is remarkable. It's a great source of pride for the community. It's also expensive because we've got to put them on more buses, send them on more trips. So we did have to, you're going to see a slight increase in the athletic transportation. So I've broken the different areas of the high school budget down into areas of increase in areas where we were able to hold the line, or in some cases actually find considerable reductions. Those areas of increase, if you look at going from the largest request down, athletic transportation, you'll notice a 3% increase. That's assuming the exact same number of trips for the exact same number of sports, but we had a contracted 3% increase in the transportation budget. Maintenance and repair, you'll notice that's a big increase. The new building has different needs. A large portion of this, believe it or not, has to do with elevator maintenance, repair, inspection, because we're now a 3-floor building. We were a 1-floor building. Our student activity account, you'll notice a $653 increase. We actually had a student leadership program that trains emerging leaders in all 4 grades that costs us between $800 and $1,200 a year, that until this year had been grant funded. And starting this year, it's something we have to be able to fund locally. That grant opportunity has just ended for us. So when you look at a $653 increase and think about the fact that we've added in something that I budgeted for $1,000, we've actually in other areas managed to slightly reduce what we're spending for student activities without getting rid of any of the valuable activities and opportunities we have for kids. Field trips, that $430 increase reflects just the changing costs in a few of the trips that we know we plan to do for kids. Equipment, well, that $2,900 increase is $2,900. There was nothing budgeted in the current school year for equipment because any equipment needs we had came through the building project. So overall, those areas of the budget do represent a $16,000 increase, which does, in these areas, come to 12.6%, which seems astounding until you move to the hold the line page. Our instructional supplies budget 36 hours ago reflected an increase. You'll notice now it's got a $1,500 decrease, so we've actually reduced it by 1.2% thanks to some tweaking, some finding ways to move some of the things that we were thinking we were going to need to spend local funding on into our Perkins grant. So we're not taking away any opportunities or any supplies for students. We've simply found a more effective way to pay for them without impacting the local budget. Athletic student activities, with all of these, great teams we've got, all of the accomplishments we've achieved, Dave turned in a budget that's $575 less than the one we had for this year. And when I'm done, Dave will come up and give you a little bit of a quick run-through of what that athletic student activity budget gets us. And since I'm talking about Dave, I'd like to embarrass him for just a moment. I found out at the beginning of the week that Dave is the recipient of the Connecticut Association of Athletic Directors Distinguished Service Award for this year. Congratulations, Dave.
Hi, David.
Our library books and periodicals budget, we're keeping where we were. Our dues and fees, $49 increase over $10,000 expense. And yes, I know I did say $10,000 for dues and fees. I'll give you some details of what that's for and what that gets a high school in just a moment. Our textbook budget, we're keeping where it is. Our conferences and professional development budget, we're able to keep at the level where it is while still providing more professional development opportunities for teachers than we have in the past, because one change we implemented this year and that will be continuing into next year is as our teachers are experimenting with all of this technology they now have available to them into the classroom, each department has chosen one faculty meeting of the year, and they get about 10 or 15 minutes to present something new, some novel approach, some new app, some new software package that they have found to be successful with their students. And what ends up happening is that we have the whole faculty bring their laptops, they log on to whatever it is, they test it, and usually about a week later you hear people around the building talking about whatever that program was and how they're going to be implementing it in their classes. So a great deal of quick, easy, immediately useful professional development from the people who know, the people who are actually using the technology. And it doesn't cost us a cent. So if you look at all of these budget areas, this is a much larger portion of our budget. This is $266,000, which is a $2,000 decrease from last year. So over this, which is roughly 2/3 of the high school's budget, we managed to come in just a hair under a 1% decrease.
That's something I should put on this board, the dollar amount.
Well, the dollar amount is actually here because, remember, we've got the 2 pages that we need to combine. Our current year budget is $396,194. Our request for next year is $410,237. It is an increase of $14,000. It is a 3.5% increase.
But did you reduce just now from the budget book that the board has?
The budget book that you have, if the one they have is more than 2 days old, then yes, they need to take $4,900 out of it.
Are there any questions?
Actually, if I could just talk very briefly about the dues and fees, because $10,500 sounds like an awful lot for dues and fees. But there are organizations the high school needs to be a member of to be functioning. First, the Connecticut Association of Schools, the CAS, the CIAC is the big part for it, the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference. You need to be a member of the conference to compete against other high schools in the state of Connecticut in sports. The New England Association of Schools and Colleges. You need to maintain your membership in that in order to maintain your accreditation as a high school. The Eastern Connecticut Conference, that is the conference that the vast majority of our teams are playing most of the time. They do occasionally play out of the ECC, but we are an ECC school. To be part of it, there's an annual membership fee. And then we get into some much smaller ones that are still necessary. To have a National Honor Society chapter, we do have to maintain a membership. We also need to maintain a membership in their parent organization, the National Association of Secondary School Principals. Our guidance and library memberships each get us resources and free professional development that is valued at much more than what we actually spend on them. The publications alone that we get through those memberships are worth more than what we spend on them. And the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development has some excellent school improvement materials that we get as part of that membership. That's the end of my portion, except for looking forward. Our focus for next year. We've just scratched the surface of what we can do with this school. We're going to continue to explore the instructional opportunities of the new high school building. We've got all of these recently rewritten curricula aligned to the Common Core that our teachers are going to be working on. That will involve more professional development, the occasional new resources that we do have budgeted for, and continued work with our math and literacy coaches to support instruction. We've had great success with them, and we're going to keep moving forward with them.
Now, wait a minute. Does the board have any questions for Andre?
Just have one question. How are the teachers' workrooms working out? You know, the shared workrooms? They're growing into them. The teachers' workrooms, for those of you who don't know, at the newly designed high school, we have multiple departments sharing office space. So our math and science department share an office space. Our English and social studies share an office space. And they also, in addition to the desk areas, they have a conference table area. And you're finding that if you go in there, especially during the common planning time for each department, you're going to see a number of people sitting around those tables, working on curriculum, working on shared assessment. And although I know that there was hesitation when the plan to use them came out, you're finding a lot of teachers who are coming to me and telling me,
that the multiple department workspaces actually are a benefit. They're finding that it's a valuable resource.
That was a big concern of mine when we went that way from rather than the teachers having their own classrooms. And I just want to make sure it's working out okay for the teachers and the students.
Yes.
Andre, thank you for that presentation, and I was really just pitting you a little bit. We all knew that the high school has different organizations that it belongs to and that it needs to, and you explained it very well. I would like to just point out, though, that even though there's a slight increase, there are reasons why the high school budget...
Well, the predominant reason is your warranties, and when Jay speaks to it as well, and the equipment. The equipment all came with the project, and now as we're in there, we're identifying some other instructional equipment that we need.
But I would like to just say that if you look back at the actual expenditure and what he said, he kept the line for the last couple of years, so it's a very modest increase, but also with all the new technology and in the implementation, we're pleased to hear that professional development is really that the teachers are really taking advantage of all the technology and using it, so it's money well spent.
Yes, it has been.
We appreciate hearing from you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dave's going to join us to talk a little bit about the athletic budget. Bill, you had asked if I could just add, when we presented at the RTM, we had an RTM member that was asking for the cost of athletics. You'll see within this budget document, we set that up as a cost center so you can see the whole overview of that.
Before you begin, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you autograph this for me?
I would like to start out with some accomplishments, and I think one was a town accomplishment. We've been trying for years to get our field house named after someone, which was Fran Sweeney, of course. And it was a wonderful experience, and it was not just my athletic department, and not just the school or our superintendent. The Board of Ed was involved, the first selectmen, the whole town, the whole community. And I don't think since this has happened, I've lived in the town for 57 years. I go anywhere in the store, somebody will walk up to me and say, "What a beautiful event." It was really nice. And I think it's a great plus for the whole community. Moving on, it's been a kind of a difficult year 3 years for me. I mean, everybody was having growing pains and trying to move into the new school, but my facility is still not finished, and we're close. We're hoping by April.
Your facility?
I guess if you can have it. And it is a beautiful facility. We could not have asked for more for our athletes in our town, and it is just gorgeous. Everything about it was done correctly, and we've made it first class, and it'll last for the community for years, many, many years. But it has had an impact on my budget, and it's still in a little bit of a flux, and we're trying to go through it as we go. For 1 year we had no home football games, and all of a sudden we're sending 11 two-bus games to transportation. We have not had we haven't had a track in 3 years, and luckily it's all set now. We will have a home track meet this year, so that's going to kind of solidify that for us. I mean, a lot of different things like that have happened. And getting the track painted in the fall, we had to suddenly move games around, and then they didn't show up. Providence College was more important than Waterford High School, so we had to move back.
That's your budget, Dave.
Did you want me to talk about that?
Yeah. I didn't mind hearing.
Okay.
Done a great job. Just a great job.
Moving on, as my boss told me to. We had 135 wins last year, 76 losses and 6 ties. We won 6 ECC championships, and we had 2 state champions, which Andre spoke about, and we also had a state runner-up on our baseball team. The great thing about Waterford High School is they love, or I should say the town of Waterford, they love their athletics, and they're very supportive, and they always have been. In our budget, we do not, we don't go for the Cadillac of our uniforms, but we don't go the cheapest. We buy a quality uniform, and we have a 5-year rotation, and we try to get 5 years before we try to go through that, and it's worked out pretty well. And that's how we talked about our transportation. We do things that we're trying to contain that. We have our teams are allowed one away scrimmage. You know, again, that's just transportation. They can do more home, but we're trying to keep those numbers down. We try to play teams that are more local than going further away from the state, because those drives cost us money also. Unfortunately, some of our programs like softball and baseball and soccer and so forth, it's difficult to find local teams that really want to play us, so we end up having to go a little further, which is it's good and bad. When we send a team to Killingly or Woodstock, we're hoping through scheduling and through the ECC and working together that we can send the varsity team along with the JV team on one bus. Because if you're going to send on different days, it's a lot of money to ride up to Woodstock and back. So many of the things that are on my budget are controlled. The officials, timer, scores, we need all those kinds of things. Talked about the idea that we rotate our uniforms through. We try to get as much use as possible out of them. The last couple of times we bought freshman basketball uniforms, we bought a reversible uniform, but a very good quality one. But now instead of having to put out for 2 uniforms, we're only buying 1, so it's been a good savings for us. We do give awards out. Everyone, our medical supplies, they're kind of yearly, they're the same kind of fees. But again, as it was pointed out, we never know what we're going to be needing in some of these sports, because we just don't know how far we're going to go into tournaments and how successful these programs are. You know, we as a whole have been very successful, so in our budget we try to make sure that we're covering those trips and so forth. And that's about it. I tried to keep the numbers as tight as I could without going up for sure.
Actually, it's very tight.
It is.
It's very tight.
And one question the board usually puts out, and I just want to make the comment that there's a lot of parity between the girls and the boys. That it's very well done.
Well,
A little bit.
when my daughter was around, I always wanted to make sure she was dressed appropriately and with a good uniform.
Okay. Are there any questions for Dave? Jody?
Do you find other schools are, like, I noticed some of our JV and freshman games, there aren't really that many. Are some of the schools doing with freshmen and JV teams, or?
We find that, unfortunately, some of the schools in our league are small, such as a Wheeler and a St. Bernard's, Tour-a-Lot. If we happen to pick them up as a crossover in our schedule through the ECC, we lose a game there because they don't have it. We tried it, like we put Old Lyme on there a couple of times, trying to pick up games and so forth.
You were playing on Saturday, right?
Yes.
Oh, on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, those are, but I'm saying even we might pick them up, we're playing Old Lyme in like a freshman game somewhere, or we picked up another game with Stonington that we didn't have, just to try to fill the schedule. But you are correct, Jody. Some of the, especially fresher programs, are not.
Yeah, I was surprised at how few they have, you know?
Yes.
Dave has given you much more detail than we've had in the budget book than in the past, so you really have a nice breakdown, cost for every sport, boys and girls, as well as the transportation budget. And then on page 74, you see the cost center. And as you get down to contracted services, that's related to the trainer. And the other accounts, you're pretty much seeing level funding. So.
Do you think down the road, like for instance the swim team and some of the smaller teams, we could use our vans rather than the buses?
I would be more, especially like the golf team, where we send 6 kids. It costs us a lot of money to put them on a small bus.
Our fourth van may actually help in some of that.
Because I think we could save a substantial amount of money.
I've been thinking about that, but we just got them last year, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we are starting to use the vans on weekends. So, for instance, I think middle school in February, the math, I might not get this right, but the math department is going to a Rubik's Cube competition in Boston.
Oh, neat.
So we're sending a van with 4 of the students, so it's definitely going. And then we'll go for the day and come back, and we'll use the van for that.
Yeah. Can you show us the savings along the way of what we're doing with the vans? Because I think it's going to be really good.
Yep. We would save a lot of money in some of those sports. Even when we send, sometimes we'll send 4 or 5 kids to a track, that the only ones that have qualified, and again, the bus is way out of control.
Yeah.
We'll be coming up with our negotiations on the transportation, the bus transportation. And when is it, another year?
We're in year 3 of a 5-year contract. Yep.
The vans will be very useful. Yeah. Did you?
Oh, no, I have
excuse me.
It's a
Very
inch
nicely
and a half.
done. Thank you.
Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
The last area that we need to address within the budget, and as Jay pulls together his presentation, we've covered every area within this budget book over these 2 nights. So Jay Miner is our Director of Buildings and Grounds.
Hello.
Welcome, Dave.
Good evening. All right. Well, we had a very busy year last year in 2012-2013 opening up the school. We had a hurricane and a blizzard. And we had a lot of things to do and pick up, clean up. Opening the school, we supported the contractors quite a bit to... You don't have handouts?
We do.
Gave me the remote.
I'll help Dave with the remote. So you want to go on to the next one, or you want still here?
Still there. And we're continuing to work with the contractors, taking care of the punch lists and working with the mechanical systems to get everything narrowed down and working as designed. We started off this year with the same schedule this summer. We did a piano lab over at the Clark Lane Middle School that worked out very well. We did painting, electrical, plumbing, heating issues. As the schools are getting some years on them, we have come across some more and more and different repair issues. The high school, as well as the warranties, are going away. We're finding ourselves purchasing more and more material because the attic stock that was in the contract has been used up in the projects. The building management systems are working very well at the high school and also the individual elementary schools and Clark Lane. It's been very handy to have our staff be able to get on a computer anywhere on the internet and be able to log into each building and make sure that the systems are functioning well, as opposed to sending someone physically through the building every day in the winter to make sure the heating is working. We can just log on and check for alarms. Townwide, we've been helping out with WPCA, Public Works, animal shelter issues, the police department, rec and parks. And we've been working with the town to save a lot of money on a lot of the maintenance issues. We are just moving into our new maintenance building, renovated, that we've done a lot of the renovations in. We had a basic project in the main high school project, but most of the work has been done by staff. And they've done a great job, and they're making the most of it. We've got a lot of the materials and attic stock that came with all of the other schools. A lot of it's been moved into this one central location. And the capacities that we've been able to move those materials in and also purchase and distribute a lot of reusables and consumables throughout the district. The first part of the budget is the site repairs. These are some issues with fencing.
Pages.
Page 59, you can find that. And playground surfaces, signage, additional signage that we need throughout the year, and curbing things that get damaged during the winter snow removal season. The rental equipment, these are for lifts and tools that we don't have at our disposal, and things for parking lot lights or anything else in the district. Travel, these are for personal vehicles used by some of the trades that don't have an assigned vehicle in the district. Service contracts, these are pest control, elevators, uniforms, certs, boiler water treatments, things like that are performed by outside contracts. Vehicle supplies, these are items that we put on the vehicles, changing the oil, windshield wipers, things like that, tires.
Looking at level funding with those?
Yes. Custodial supplies, we have a slight increase because a lot of the items that we had, even in the contract, we're starting to pick up a lot of the items that we're starting to run out of. Maintenance supplies, this is to purchase a lot of the major items that we need for HVAC, filters, belts, plumbing repairs, flushometers, and heating repair supplies. And there is an increase here because, like I said, we're starting to run out of the contractual extra parts that come with these buildings. Painting supplies, we've really tried to keep up with a lot of the wear and tear throughout the buildings. Every summer and during the school year, we get into some of our high wear areas and make sure that they stay looking as new as possible. Pool supplies, this item went down a little bit because of the pool use has been open, it's been closed. We've had the shock every time that we close it and reopen it. So now we've pretty much got into a stable pool use schedule. So, and also our chlorination system has been improved, and we've been able to really dial in our chemistry. The state won't allow you to go to salt. It won't. You can't use peroxide. You can't use salt. You can't use copper. The only sanitizing agent that the state will allow is sodium hypochlorite, and that's it. By chlorine.
It certainly saves a lot for the homeowner.
It saves a lot on equipment. I mean, it's so corrosive. I mean, salt, even though it is corrosive, it's nothing like chlorine.
Maybe that's something we could pass with local
legislature. Yeah, it's a mandate.
No, there's outdoor pools. They have it in some areas. Town-run pools, but any educational facility, chlorine.
Would you need sunlight to work with the salt? Would that be outdoor pool?
Well, you can use a UV or an ozonator artificially to also work as a sanitizer.
It's nice we have a decrease there.
Yes. We have a slight increase in vehicle equipment repair and vehicle maintenance. We're finding that some of our equipment with this new de-icing agents that the town has, we're getting a lot more corrosion, and we're using a lot more. We're going through changing the sanders, and a lot of the issues we're getting welding done even on the pickup trucks. We've got a 10-year replacement. We're finding that 8 years may be something we would want to talk to about the vehicle replacement plan. Equipment repair and the fire extinguishers. These are state mandated inspections for our fire extinguishers. That will be going down because the new schools have fewer fire extinguishers because the current regulations with the state prefer you to get out of the building and not sit around and fight the fire, so they don't provide you with fire extinguishers. So there are fewer to test. HVAC repair, this is gone up a bit because as our schools have gone more and more from hot water and steam to air conditioning, refrigeration, and also heat pumps, that we do find ourselves going through more refrigeration type of costs. Repair alarms, these are for your fire alarm inspections, which is dictated by the state, as well as our burglar alarms, freezer alarms, water pump alarms.
Level funding there?
Level funding. Repairs general. These are normal wear and tear items throughout the school. Windows, locks, hardware, bleacher repairs. Our bleacher inspections are in there that are required annually. Bulbs, electrical items.
We had a decrease there.
And that was a decrease of 70%. Do what?
Yeah. We made a shift. We made a budgetary correction. That reduction in the 8,500, that 8,500 appeared.
Right.
It
that went into, right,
it
went into, yeah.
Bob picked up a more appropriate way to list this particular expense. So you'll see the decrease here, but an increase in another line. that was in the equipment line. Okay.
All right. Our goals are going to be to make sure that these schools are maintained and kept in a safe and healthy environment. Our indoor air quality has been our top concerns in these buildings. Our filtration is tops. The high school itself runs off 100% outside air during the occupancy mode, so our CO2 levels are phenomenal. Our heating, the evenness of the heat within the building has been great, and we're very, very proud of the design that we have within the facility. It's also one of the few facilities in the state that utilizes what's called the chill beam technology, which does utilize 100% outside air. And we've been tracking CO2, and we've got trend data from the time we opened the school, and at no time have our CO2 levels climbed anywhere near any kind of OSHA or state-regulated levels. So we're in good shape there. It's been a great building. Any questions?
Questions again?
I just have a comment. I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work on the school building committee, along with everything else that you do. And I appreciate the fact you explain things to me, because I just don't understand them most of the time. And also all of your help during the games, the football games, the basketball games. And there's been so many positive comments from people from other towns saying what a beautiful facility it is and how well kept it is. And it's really, I'm very proud of all of our schools.
We've got great schools. We want it to last a long time.
Any other questions from the board? I also just would like to point out some of the increases that we do find in the budget are, again, as I don't pointing things at the state, but some of them are mandated with some of the types of supplies and the different kinds of equipment that you have to use. So you might find some slight increase in the budget due to issues that that's not under our control. So overall, I think it's presented a very modest budget, and as you pointed out, that the maintenance of these buildings, it's important that as we move forward that we really look carefully to be sure that we're supplying you with the necessary funds to do the appropriate maintenance to protect our buildings from the amount of money that we spent getting them built. So that's important to the Board of Ed. But we thank you for the work that you do and for the budget that you presented. Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
I think that's, we've hit most of the different areas.
We've now hit all of the areas within the budget, and really it's open to any further discussion, any further questions that you have, anything that you want us to investigate any further.
I just, if you wouldn't mind, just to reassure the board, because we did say, and during the presentation tonight, we did hear that class size has been important to the Board of Education over the years, and that this budget will protect somewhat the guideline within reason, that none of the class sizes have increased to any concern the board should have. For instance, at the high school, we don't, as I mentioned to you, I was looking for the numbers, so we're going to go on the assurance that this is within those guidelines.
You're looking at a very modest decline in enrollment at the high school, and you're looking at the same staffing level. And so based upon some of the efficiencies that we've made in the last couple of years with scheduling, you notice in the last couple of years we've reduced some staffing based upon that. We're able to stay within the guidelines. When Craig presented the elementary class sizes, and on that particular page in the appendix, I think it's Appendix C, let me see, it's Appendix E. You can see the class sizes through the elementary, and I want to go to the page,
93.
Page 93. And you can see at the middle school level, again, maintaining the class sizes with the staffing level, there's no impact there. And the same at the high school. So we've looked very closely and very carefully at this, and we feel that we can address that guideline. That's one of your top budget assumptions.
I just thought it would be good to clarify that to the board. So at this time, did you have another?
Oh, no, I just noticed the fifth grade classes that, right next to 24 and 24 and then 23.
Remember we said that was the hot spot,
Yeah.
and that's why we had the contingency teacher. There was also, and again on the slide that Craig presented, he actually had it in color, and so you could see where we felt the hot spots. You also have the 23 at Oswegatchie. So we have 4 classes that we're keeping an eye on, and that's why I think the value of having that contingency teacher. This year we didn't need it. The money's returned to the town. Kathleen and I visited with the Board of Finance last week. We shared that sum of money would be returned.
Just for the board now, if there are no other questions from the board at this stage, we can open this up to our guests this evening and people that have waited patiently tonight. Okay, Bill, your question?
Okay, well, I have
A couple?
a list here for each area. This the area that I wrote the question on in the special ed.
Yeah. Is there a page, Bill, that you're referring to?
These are just general questions that as I listened to the presentation, things that came in my head that I wrote down, or you said something that I didn't quite understand. So, or it's something that I want to know what we're doing. My first question is, do we have training of the teachers and the staff, and this is part on the precursor signs for students with mental health problems. Have we trained teachers and the support staff that contact the students in looking at so that you can
Signals.
So you can catch a kid before he gets too far over the edge?
Kathy, you want to comment on that, the training?
All the special ed staff is in CMT training, which I mentioned.
What does CMT mean?
That training is physical and psychological management training, and that training is training that helps staff look at triggers of students and manage students' behavior prior to the acting out behavior. So put strategies in place and support students before acting out behavior occurs.
We actually also provided that training on election day for all of our paraprofessional staff, so it just wasn't for the certified staff.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that comes in contact with the students,
Yeah.
I hope it's good. And what support do you get from the Youth Service Bureau regarding school pathologists and that sort of thing? You did touch on it a little bit during your discussion. I guess I know the Board of Ed has given the Youth Service Bureau some support. I haven't looked at their budgets of what they're coming in with, but I'm wondering if we as a town have a hole in that area. That is something that as a town we need to think about and determine whether we need to. 3 incidents this week across the nation, and we've got to try to figure out how we can catch trouble.
Bill, we provide services in school, but there's more services that are required in some situations.
Yeah.
So we have families that we refer to outside agencies, and again, based upon what families can afford. And so that's really a service that our Youth Service Bureau has really been able to help us with a referral to them for additional time with students and families than we're giving.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to the very good presentation that Pat Theodore did. This is a dumb question. What is feedback? FBAC, rather, yeah, FBAC. What's that stand for?
Smarter Balance Assessment, that's replacing both CMT and the CAP testing.
Smarter Balance Assessment, okay. And the C stands for what? Say again?
Consortium, it's a consortium of states.
Okay.
We'll give you any acronym you ever wanted.
Yeah, I'm Navy guy, I'm used to acronyms. Okay, what training have we done in the school system providing staff with active shooter training?
You want to elaborate on that? Give us a little bit.
Well, do you know what I mean by active shooter training?
No.
Okay.
I had that training last year.
Oh, I did too. That's telling me. I had.
Oh, We did it at the high school before we tore the building down.
Had planning.
Got it. Yes, training.
Yes. we had some of our administrators and
Yeah,
some of
I just think that if you haven't had every teacher go through some sort of orientation, it doesn't take long. I mean, even civilians should know what to do in an active shooter situation. And I've been through 3 sessions, and basically it boils down to run, hide, fight back. And the priorities.
Yep.
Priority 1, out of there.
Yep.
Priority 2, you can't
Find a
hide
safe place.
So you know where you're going to hide.
Right.
Third one is that you're so close to the guy or person, then it's fight back.
Bill, can I just interrupt you for a minute because I think Jim has something to add.
We also, our teachers can now lock down the school from their classroom.
From their classroom.
Okay.
Which is at least an important way for them to do if they notice something unusual or alarming to alert.
The whole building was locked down and immediately lets the police know.
Before we would get onto the intercom, announce the lockdown, and now it's
Okay. And now this is looking a little bit at, especially in the upper echelons in the middle school, upper 2 grades in the middle school and at the high school. Do we have some student programs, one of their terms we'll call it student training in peer support and identification of what one of their classmates is starting to show signs of doing some strange and unusual things and so on, so that they know what the precursors from their point of view are.
In middle school, we have a mentoring program in EWSC that deals with all this type of situations.
Is that the advisory program that you mentioned?
Yes. And Mrs. Moore and I also conduct assemblies at the beginning of the year with all the students in the school, talk to them about what to do with a peer, a friend, or going through any kind of special situation, we can report that to you.
Okay.
And at the high school level, our advisory program, which meets every day, is really focused on building small communities of students who are together every day over 4 years. And one new piece that we incorporated this year to that is a number of activities where you may read or view something brief that's meant to spark discussion. And for instance, this week's midterm exams are starting next Tuesday. It was about stress management and recognizing signs of stress and who may be nearing,
How to de-stress yourself.
how to de-stress yourself and your friends, exactly. So that whole mental health piece, the guidance counselors go into the advisories as well and talk with them because the counseling curriculum, we're putting more of an emphasis on that, yes.
Bill, how many more do you have?
I've got 7 more.
Okay, because I want to be sure, but I don't want to cut you off, but do a little more and then we'll go ahead.
All right. This is for athletics. I noticed, and this is just a comment, you need security at the girls' soccer games. You don't need security at the boys' soccer games.
I spoke to one, there was an issue on that. There should have been 200.
Oh, okay.
Cost of them all 19.
Yeah, okay. I just found that interesting.
Good.
There's some problem with girls' games and we don't know.
Thanks for picking that up.
And the other is, this is more from outside the outside world, but I think it's a pretty important one to think about. Have we taken steps for the contact sports so that the trainers and the coaches and so on understand, and the kids understand the dangers of concussions?
Yeah, we just worked on that. And Dave, do you want to respond to that?
There's a lot of evidence. We have to have all of our coaches on concussion certified, they can be on the court. Our trainers, even good guidelines for doing that, positions, Carlos, and from that point on, any kind of instance that occurs, he's the first one to make the decision. We have a 7-day policy and system for 7 days. Our coaches are very good. They don't challenge it, there's no problem. But our trainers,
I'm worried about the kids. Kids don't understand it's a different world. And they're going to want to, we'll be back in, coach, I can do it. No, you can't find it. Okay, now I'm on to something that I'm a little more familiar with, building managers. Who are your building managers, Jay? Are they part of your staff or are they inhabitants of the building? Okay, does your building manager live in the building, or does he work out of your office?
When you say a building manager, you say, try to understand.
Well, you said you have building manager.
Management.
Oh, okay, you don't have a building, you don't have one of your individuals or an individual in the building that's responsible to make sure that.
Yeah, the head custodian.
And that's the central filter for any things that are wrong, so that somebody through the teacher's office or the teacher goes to push a button and whatever it is doesn't work, they go call that person.
So what we do is we have custodians, school team, work order system, and we have the principals that can work order system.
Nothing gets by them.
Does Public Works have some of the equipment that the Board of Ed is able to use, like backhoes, things like that?
We use backhoes from Park and Rec. They let us use theirs. Usually the equipment that we need to borrow is something outside of what the town has, mostly aerial lifts. We can find ourselves.
Yeah, if it's only a one-time use component, there's no sense in anything.
Right.
No, I don't have that.
Do you have a training program for your maintenance techs and all the new equipment?
It's all the contracts that we have.
So the guys are able to go to school on it and that sort of thing?
We put X amount of hours for each realm of equipment, whether it's mechanical, pumps, pump reps, startups, with our people. We videotape those. All of the energy saving, the light saving, harvesting systems we have trained on. Every system within the building, we have X amount of hours of training for all of the personnel. We also annually have full training for both shifts on our chemistry that we use to clean the building and every piece of equipment that we have within the district for them.
Okay. The reason you don't use Public Works for your mowers is that Public Works capacity basically is so sweet.
Yeah, they're
They're maxed.
And although you made a comment about not having any fire extinguishers, all those buildings do have sprinklers, right?
they're fully free.
Yeah, okay.
Bill, we just have fewer extinguishers. It doesn't mean we don't have many of them.
I understand.
But you used to go down the hallway and there was a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, but with a sprinkler,
They have a fire
you really don't need those fire.
The fire extinguishers sometimes keep the sprinklers from going.
Do you have an installed temperature monitoring system, or do you use portable monitors?
We haven't installed that.
Okay, it goes around and monitors the various, so you can go to one central location and read everywhere in the atmosphere.
We have what's called an air acuity system. It samples, there are 5 locations, vacuum pumps, and there are over 230 monitoring stations.
And that all, now that we're in the vein of computers now, does all go back to your office there, or to
I
your
can go on to
building?
my office, I can go on another laptop anywhere there's Wi-Fi.
Okay, great. I'm done.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Bill. Any other questions? Yes, Ryan?
I would. It's a very, very tight budget. That's what's been broadcast. I heard what would be nice to have improvements in elementary school. I'm curious to hear the principal tax, principal housing, what's in their facilities, do they have a few more hours, or what's next on their list, or what are they giving up? My first question.
Thank you for that.
Hi, Brian. How are you? See you again. I think in my case, in the case of something that would probably be another additional special ed teacher. We feel great about our special level of school counselors, so it's a fantastic addition. But I think it would probably be an additional special ed education teacher, only so that we could possibly lessen the size of the cooperative class.
At a high school, there's always interest in adding more elective teaching. I could probably, I would have student interest if I was to offer more in any one of several elective areas, our tech ed, our music, our art. But we're not reducing anything. We have had, as Jerry mentioned, a drop in enrollment in recent years. We're fine with what we have. In an ideal world, I'd love to add more, offer more electives.
Awesome, that's great. I like that idea. And that leads me really into the budget. It's kind of a shame that we don't see the numbers in the budget of the sections and number of students are enrolled and all of the other electives that are being scratched. And really kind of take a look at those, not as an average, maybe by section. and maybe that might be able to give it a picture. Because it's nice to hear that we are adding in team leaders and more assistance for the special ed director, but he has more days and paying him more. But to me, it seems like we also need to look at what can we do for the kids. And I really think that's the baseline. A few $2,000 here and there, that's great. How about an after-school activity then for the kids? I know at Park Lane, the buses got cut back from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to only Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. This also gets back to kids are having a few more problems. Then why are we sending them home on Thursdays and Fridays then when we had those programs intact? I'm really of the belief that it's nice to have great software. It's nice to have all these other additional things. But I think really what we're lacking is that personal contact with the kids. And I think that's reached through the day and after school programs. Such as they can, and by the way, the budget was great up there, right the way it was out there in detail. That was really nice. But I think that's really what I'm after. As a member of the RTM, I'm not necessarily looking to cut, but I want the program to get for the kids. I mean, it's nice to have the staff and everybody else out there get what all they want, but it's really for the kids. It also leads me to just one more item, and I'll be done for this evening. If you take a look at the substitute account, you're looking at $325,000. And some of that, to me, I understand that it is a big staff. But out of those days, how many days are the teachers, in this case, or even administrators, because there is a domino effect. How many days are the teachers actually out because they're sick, or how many days are we paying subs because they are being told sick from over their central office? And if you think about a domino effect, first one that comes to my mind, say for an example, like Brown's going to school. Automatically on that one day, I think you're pulling 6 to 8 teachers out of the building 5 times. Now, I'm not saying that the rounds is not important, but where's the student data maybe to support pulling out 6 to 8 teachers? That means that the principals are not in the building during that day as well. So you're really taking all of your school and pulling all the top people out, these up.
On 5 days.
On 5 days. I'm just using that as an example. There are teachers whose poll is correct and all those other necessary things. So you have the teachers are polled, that means the principals are polled. That means you now have to go spend money to have the assistant teacher to kind of cover the school. I mean, this is just a domino effect. So again, I was looking at the $325,000 that's projected. Seems like a lot of money, especially since we have new schools, and they technically should be climate control, which they are, and teachers and students should be healthy.
Thank you for your suggestions and the questions, and just not to argue, but I think the board has, number one, always keeps the children first in its discussions. Also, just to respond, part of when we were in negotiation, there is a lot of effort being looked at in the wellness program. We're trying to do our best to cut down on absences in that way, but we've heard your suggestions tonight, and I'm sure the board will take them into account. Thank you, Brian.
I just wanted to add a little bit to what Brian just said. In the very first year that I arrived, we cut $1.6 million from the budget. We were in a crisis. And so some of that was reflected in some of the after-school activities. We needed to do some prioritization. We also have brought back after-school activities over time. If you recall, in the current fiscal year budget, at the middle school level, Jim made some shifts in funds in order to bring back some activities. We've also added in this budget 3 additional activities at the elementary in the extracurricular after-school activities. So as you look at those items, there are some slight increases. So that's an important piece to keep in mind. The other part of the substitute account that you also need to keep in mind, that's also how we fund the interns, which is in place of a substitute teacher. So we have one building intern in order to cover staff who need to attend PPTs or other important meetings. Our professional development is just not sending people out to conferences. It's providing the training in district. So part of that expense is related to substitutes. So Brian is right. In other cases, we would be using those funds in order to pay people to work during the summertime above and beyond what we're doing in order to write the curriculum. So we've really looked at a way to bring staff together in a very collaborative way, in a very cost-effective way as well.
Thank you, Jerry. Martha?
I just have two questions.
Thank you.
One is as a teacher, the other one is a contractual question. The first one as a teacher is, are the nursing services that are under contractual facilities, are those including the health aides at the elementary level this year? Because I know last year
Yes.
we have to meet now.
Yeah.
The other question from a contractual viewpoint is, in our supplemental page, there were positions that were shown in school for 10 after-school activities throughout the year, and I think it was budgeted at like $335 or something, so that teachers would take on some additional ones during the winter. Are those back in the budget, or?
Yeah. You and I spoke about that earlier at one of our meetings, and you will notice in the activity account at the elementary level, you'll see some additional funds in there. Yeah.
Just off, it has nothing to do, but I'm just thinking about the 200 field trips we get with the bus train. How many do we use? Do we get?
We use every one of them.
We do? Oh, good. We really get our money's worth with that negotiation. Yeah.
This is a subject that's very difficult to speak about. The cost of special education, especially those in private schools, like we have one or two up around $200,000 a year. These people have to mortgage it, or do we take this on?
No, these are Waterford children. These are Waterford children. And, one of the things Kathy talked about is really to be careful with confidentiality, especially when you have a number of one or two. It may be very easy to identify. So before we ever would get to that type of placement, we've really looked at the severity of the needs and the types of services that a child would need to receive. Those are generally highly specialized, and you have a very limited number of organizations that are able to provide that service. So before we ever got to that particular cost, we would really review quite a bit.
I know it sounds medium cost, but $200,000, is this over the year, 365 days?
Sometimes the services go all year through the summer. Yep. Both. Kathy talked about an excess cost. So a cost that would reach the $200,000, we're going to be eligible for a reimbursement after we've spent the first $65,000, so to speak. And we would get back 70 cents on every dollar beyond the $65,000. So there is some relief.
I think this is I think the taxpayer, it's a subject that is hard to speak about because it's confidential, you can understand it, but it's a lot of money.
It is.
And the taxpayers, the people that work, are doing a great service. That's what I mean. And it's unknown. We know it. But it's unknown. Yet it's a great humanitarian service that we are doing.
And it's responsibility.
I just have one comment to add, and this is strictly from a financial standpoint. I call it financial roulette, because the way the system is now, and I'll just use an example. If Waterford had one student that cost $250,000 for an out-of-town placement, that family moves to New London or to East Lyme, that's now their responsibility, and that's not in their budget. The local town here would suddenly say, oh, we have a budget savings. The town next door now has it. So the system is flawed to some extent where the dollars, other than the excess cost piece, do not necessarily follow the student.
It's why the excess cost, we're always waiting. It's already been looked at and reduced, so we keep watching.
Just the way it is.
Thank you. Other questions? Anyone? Well, before we close, I would like to thank everyone again for coming out to these...
I do have one piece of information. Okay. When Kathy was presenting, Bob stepped out of the room just to cost out the social worker, the school psychologist, so I'd like to just pass this around and let me say one for Bob.
Hope you can read my writing.
Yeah, this is handwritten. So if you look at the top, again, taking into consideration salary, FICA, and Medicare taxes, with those three positions, looking at, generally speaking, what you would expect with a degree and a step, and then reducing 6 interns from the substitute line item, you would see a net increase of $86,100 to do what I spoke about at the beginning. That would be a social worker, a psychologist, and 3 paraprofessionals in the area of reading at the elementary level. At the bottom, what Bob did was show that the increase that I proposed to you the other night is at $639,723. Adding the $86,100, it would raise the budget to a 1.63% increase. So it's something to consider as we get together on January 30th to deliberate on the budget.
Yeah, because I think this is actually news to me tonight. I hadn't thought about the interns being in part. I looked at that figure too, but I didn't register that. So this is quite a savings when you take back the interns out from the substitute line to get the social worker, the psychologist, and the paras on those 2 areas that we talked about, math and literacy. That does, I'll go back to it in a moment. That looks like quite a saving. But we need to look at the what it would cost. And again, just to let the board know, we don't have at this stage, we don't know exactly what we're going to see with the budget. As we said, we're waiting to get more information on a few important areas. So it's just something to keep in mind, to be thinking about as we move forward. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
My name is Ava Poletti. I'm one of the 2 people workers, and I just wanted to say that I'd be more than happy with Kathy and Bossy, be able to share anything that I can to help them understand the new they are significant and very passionate.
Can you say your name again?
Asia, A-J-A, Thank you.
Thank you for your work. Is that it? Mr.
It is.
Okay. So, Jody?
I just have one quick question, and it's for Kathy, I guess. The nurse that we have at Waterford Country School, that's on top of what we pay our nursing service in the schools?
Totally separate.
Okay. Yeah, separate in the budget. That's a lot of money.
And it's also a mandate. We're required to do that. Yeah.
I think DCF should pay for it.
Before we close, and I said this when we began the budget workshop last week, this didn't just happen. This budget didn't just happen. And Brian, while we appreciate your comments, and we've tried very hard as the Board of Education to look at those areas that we can continue to improve, but being fiscally responsible at the same time. This board keeps in mind the educational interest of the student. That's our number one responsibility and our number one role. But I would like to commend the administration for really going out and trying to save the town and money in any area possible. The aggressive bidding over the years, the containment costs, the health care costs, getting that stabilized, all of those areas have allowed us to come forward with the budget that we have tonight with the minimal increase that we're at this point, and we're going to wait to see where we will end up on the 30th. So on January 30th, the board will come back and we'll look at the budget one more time and take action at that time. Right.
The 6 interns, are these student interns?
We have a contract with a local university to employ them.
I'd be interested in hearing from the building principals how much teacher time is lost and supervising and how much is an actual benefit. I mean, they come in untrained really. I mean, they haven't been in the building before, they don't know what the specific needs are. Is it a net gain or a net loss?
It's almost always a net gain. Often these interns are doing the master's program.
For
So
education.
they've received a bachelor's degree, they're in a master's program for master's in education. They've been working with Sacred Heart or University of Maine. Some of them have come in already having done their student teaching. Most of those come in having done substitute teaching and the practicums to go with their education degree as they went through 4 years and now in the master's level. There's obviously an orientation period when they come in. But the advantages of the interns we use for our first substitutes today, they become a member of the staff. They, after a short amount of time, know the children, they know the curriculum, and they know the culture and the teacher. So when you have a teacher absent on a particular day and an intern is your first sub, you have that much more of a quality person in there because they're very familiar with the entire school community. So you have a better person in front of the kids that day than a former sub who hasn't been in the building at all.
I can share on that as a parent, and I've seen it in the classroom, and I've felt they've done a good job.
Thanks.
So, with that, I think we'll be back here, the board will be back, but the budget piece will be back on January 30th.
30th, you're right.
And I know he told me he didn't need to, but I'd like to do some posting. So, if there is no other business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Second by Jim. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. Very well.